Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing, man? Antonelli here.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How we doing? Man, Antonelli here. Today, we're talking about my recruitment as a high school player and was I heavily recruited? I get asked a lot about kind of the process that I went through and how heavily I was recruited, so we're going to talk about that. I'm going to kind of take you through my journey. Before we get into that, today's video is powered by Triton. If you guys follow our stuff, you know that we wear Triton jerseys and gear. They do a great job. Go check them out. Go to custombaseballjerseys.com. You'll be able to see everything they make over there. I highly recommend that you go check it out. Okay, so let's go in the Wayback Machine to my high school career, and we're going to talk about my recruitment. So all of my recruitment pretty much started after my junior year of high school. Okay, that summer is when I really started to get recruited. Now, there were a few teams that saw me play before that, but back then was much different than today. So the recruiting process was much later. You'll see some players like actually committing their freshman year of high school or their sophomore year of high school. That really didn't happen back when I was playing. When I was playing, everybody committed their senior year, pretty much. Like I don't really remember guys committing before your senior year. Back then, colleges couldn't talk to you until July 1st, I think it was, of right before you went into senior year. So that was the day that schools could actually talk to you. And nobody talked to you before that. Like in today's recruiting process for Division 1 schools, they can't talk to guys until what is it, September 1st of basically their junior year of high school. So their junior year starts and now they can talk to you. But if anyone has been part of the process, you know that if you're a really good player and you're getting recruited to play Division 1 baseball, that all they do is call your summer ball coach and say, hey, can you have Johnny call me today? And they can do that freshman year, so they can do it whenever. So I get calls all the time or texts that say, hey, can you let this player know to call me tomorrow night at 7 o'clock? And I go, yep, okay. So although they can't contact the player, they just call the summer ball coach and have us have the player contact them. So players are getting recruited much earlier. Back in my day, didn't happen. I didn't get any calls. I didn't talk to any schools. I didn't have coaches going to summer ball coaches to have me call them before that date. None of that happened, okay? So before that time, I think I got like a letter in the mail. Back then, that's how long ago it was. You actually get letters. So I remember like my sophomore year of high school, I got a letter from UVA, from University of Virginia. I don't even remember what the letter said. I think it might have said like, we saw you play somewhere and, you're a good player. And I think that was it. I don't even know if that's the rules. But I actually went down and watched a UVA game. Me, my dad, and my best friend got in our car and we just drove down to watch them play sophomore year. It was kind of crazy of us. It was just a letter that I got. Again, it wasn't anything like saying, we want you to play for us or anything. At least I don't think it was. But we went down and kind of watched them play. So that was the first time that I wasn't getting recruited, but that was the first time I really started thinking about college baseball. And funny fact here, just to give you guys some background again, when I watched that game, I went down and watched the University of Virginia play against Florida State. Two ACC schools, two really good programs. UVA back then, those years, I don't remember them being as good as they've been the last couple of years, but they were still a good program. And Florida State was Florida State. And I vividly remember watching the games and telling my dad, like, there's no way I can play at these schools. Like, I can't play in this conference. I can't play at either one of these schools. But if for some reason UVA likes me, I'm coming here and I'll sit on the bench for 4 years and because I just want to be part of this atmosphere. Like I just want to play baseball in this conference because this is just amazing baseball. But never thought I could play there. It's funny how things progressed over the next couple of years because then I was recruited by a lot of ACC schools. But anyways, that was my first thought to give you guys some background. Now let's fast forward to my junior year of high school. It ends. I go and play summer ball. I play for a team called the Ohio Warhawks. Now, this team was a travel ball team, but we had players. We all went and lived in Ohio, and we had players from all over the country, and we just went around and kind of beat the hell out of everybody. So I got a random call one day. My junior year of high school, got a call from Ron Slusher, who is the coach who runs the Ohio Warhawks, and he said, hey, Matt, you were recommended to us as a really good player, and we have a really good team, and we go and beat the hell out of everybody, and we have all these high draft picks and all these guys that went on to play college, and we want you to play for us. You're going to come out and live in Ohio with the rest of the team in a big house, and I'll buy you your food and everything, and we'll just play baseball all day long and practice. And I said, I was like, okay, that sounds great. I hung up the phone. My mom got home from work, and I said, hey, Mom, I'm going to go live in Ohio for the summer. And she was like, oh, what the hell are you talking about? And I said, I don't know, some guy called from the Ohio Warhawks, and sounds like a really good team, and I'm going to go. So they were like, my parents were like, okay, sounds good. So I went to Ohio, and we beat the hell out of everybody, and we had, our teams were pretty good. I think we had like 4 or 5 first-round picks on that team, so we were real good. And so that's where I started getting recruited, okay? So we played in a bunch of big tournaments that summer. Played in a tournament in Memphis, Tennessee, I think it was. I played in a tournament down in Georgia, Perfect Game tournament. Actually, the same tournament that I just went and played or coached at with our 17. So those were kind of the big tournaments where a lot of schools started to watch me play. And on that July 1st, that day that teams could actually call you, I remember I was playing in a game. I got home after the game, or I got back to the hotel, and I remember I went and looked at my phone, and it was a different world back then. Again, there was no apps and Instagram and all that stuff. Some of you are probably like, how are you not with your phone the whole time? Like back then, like nobody carried their phone around. It was like there was no texting. Like no one had their phone 24/7. It was like literally like thrown. I don't know. I think I just left it at the hotel or left it somewhere. And I remember I got it. It was a little Nokia phone about this big. It was purple, and the screen was like a greenish color. It was a horrible phone, which was actually good because then I didn't want to go on it, and it didn't bother me. It wasn't consuming my life, and like it does now. And so I remember I had a ton on that day. I had a ton of calls, and I remember the first call I got the message. It was from Alabama, and Alabama, obviously a really big program. And the weird thing is they were the first team that I ever heard from. Well, I guess they were the first message that I listened to. And so I called them back, and they didn't answer. And fun fact, I never ever got a hold of them. I never talked to them ever. Like, they were the first team to call me. And I called them back, and they didn't answer. And they didn't call me back for some reason. I just never talked to them again, okay? The second school was Georgia Tech. Now, this was kind of, I can really remember this, hearing the Georgia Tech coach's voice. When they said, like, Georgia Tech, I was like my mouth just dropped. Because Georgia Tech, I was a huge Red Sox fan. Like, Nomar Garciaparra played at Georgia Tech, and Jason Varitek played at Georgia Tech. And never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I could play baseball at Georgia Tech. Again, I just told you the story about UVA and Florida State, and I would have been happy to go just ride the bench for 4 years. And so here's another ACC school who's known as a great program, and they were interested in me. So I was super excited, and so that was, at that point, I was like, yeah, I want to go to Georgia Tech. It was like the second team that said they liked me, and I was like, yeah, I'm in. So, there's a bunch of other schools that ended up calling me that day. And as the summer kind of progressed, more and more schools called me. But let's talk about Georgia Tech for a second. So, when we were playing in Georgia, we were in Georgia for that tournament. I went on an unofficial visit to Georgia Tech. So I was already there. And I went there, and I was just like, yeah, I want to play here. Like, when you're a high school player and like a big program like that likes you, it doesn't take much for you to be like, yep, I'm in. Like, let's go. So they liked me, and so I was like ready to go to Georgia Tech, and ended up. It's funny, my offer kind of not got pulled, but my scholarship. I was not offered as much as I thought I was going to because of a player his name was Tyler Green. He was drafted, I think, in like the second round or something out of high school. And they didn't think he was going to come to Georgia Tech. They thought he was going to leave for the draft. And he ended up deciding not to take his however much money they gave him. And he ended up on campus. And when he ended up on campus, a lot of the scholarship money they thought was going to be open went to him. And then wasn't a lot for me. And so that kind of fell through. And it didn't work out. But luckily for me, I ended up getting a bunch of calls as we kept going into the summer. So UNC Chapel Hill and Wake Forest. UVA was still talking to me, Michigan, and there was a lot of teams. So there was mostly East Coast teams. I actually didn't talk to anyone on the West Coast. Most of my scholarship offers were anywhere typically from like 50, 60, maybe up to 70%. St. Louis actually offered me a full scholarship. That was the only full scholarship I got. I wasn't going to have to pay any money to go there. I didn't know much about the program. It wasn't a big program, and I actually I didn't give it a ton of thought, even though getting a full scholarship would have been nice. But it pretty much came down to So you get 5 official visits, okay? Official visits are when the school pays for you to go on the visit. They fly you in, they pay for your hotel, and they pay for some of your meals and all that stuff. An unofficial visit is when they don't pay for stuff. So I took an unofficial to Georgia Tech because I was already in Georgia, and so I just went over during the day and checked everything out. So my official visits were to UNC Chapel Hill. That was the first one. Then Wake Forest. I had Michigan. I had Boston College because I'm from the Boston area. And my 5th one, I don't even know if I scheduled a 5th one. Oh, Notre Dame. So those were my 5 official visits that I had set up. Okay? So to give you an idea, I would say, was I heavily recruited? I would consider that pretty heavily recruited. So as far as a player, I'd say I was, at the time, probably one of the better players in Massachusetts. And I was ranked, if you go on like Perfect Game, I was ranked in New England. I was considered a top player in New England. What number was I? I'm not 100% sure. I guess I would say I was probably like top 50 in New England, maybe higher than that. I ended up getting drafted after my senior year. Didn't sign, of course, went to Wake Forest. So just to give you an idea, like I was one of the better players in Massachusetts, I would say. I'd say I was probably a top 5, probably like a top 5 player in Massachusetts for my grade. Okay? So I've got those visits lined up. I go to UNC Chapel Hill, and for some reason I didn't like it there, to be completely honest. And they were really, really good. They went to the College World Series all 3 years that I was in college, okay? But I just had a feel, like, I don't know, something about the campus I didn't like. Not to say that the players were bad, but when I went on a visit there, we didn't really do anything. Like, I don't even remember who gave me my visit. I just remember we just kind of sat in the dorm room and they were studying for tests, and I just kind of sat there. I didn't really meet anyone on the team. And I just left there and I was like, like, they're a really good program. They're an awesome program, but I just didn't feel it. I went to Wake Forest my next visit. The second I got on campus, I was like, I really like this place. Like, I think this is where I want to go. The players, I like the players a lot. I like the coaching staff. I love the small feel of the campus, only about 4,000 people. I liked everything. I thought that I had a chance to go in there and play somewhat quickly. At the same time, the program had been really, really good for a while. And so everything just kind of felt really nice. Like I tell the guys all the time, you just get a feeling sometimes when you go on campus and you meet people, and you just get a feeling one way or the other, and my gut said, this is the place for you. So after I took that visit, I went home and I talked to my parents, and I said, I think Wake Forest is going to be the place. I gave it a few days and I chose Wake Forest. And I ended up having to call and cancel my visits to the other places, so BC and Michigan and Notre Dame. And I just said, like, listen, I really appreciate everything. And I'd been talking to these coaches for a while, and I just said, my heart tells me Wake Forest is the place for me, and I don't want to come on visits if I don't feel like, if I feel like I already know where I want to go, this is where I'm going to be happy. And so some coaches were like, okay, some coaches were not very happy with me. But that's kind of the way it goes, and I chose Wake Forest. And I ended up getting, a lot of people say, like, what kind of scholarship you get? I think I got like a 65 or 67% scholarship or something like that. So, which is a pretty good scholarship, I'd say, especially for a position player. Again, in baseball, people sometimes don't realize that you don't get full scholarship. Almost no one gets full scholarships. So you only have 11.7 scholarships to give to an entire team, a 35-man roster. So really, if you broke it down, every player's getting like 33%. Now, some players don't get anything, right? So some players don't get a scholarship at all. Some players might get a little bit more than I got, 67% or so. But I would say if you're getting over 50% scholarship, it's a pretty good scholarship, especially when it's all athletic money. So that's kind of long story of how I was recruited. Hopefully that answers your question. If I was heavily recruited, again, I guess that would be considered heavily recruited, but I'm sure there were plenty of people and players that were recruited a lot more heavier than me. And again, mine was all East Coast. Mine was mostly like ACC schools. That was, for some reason, that was just like the conference that recruited me. I didn't talk to very many SEC schools, but the ACC, I talked to a lot of schools, and then I didn't talk to any West schools. No schools out West really came out to recruit me. So I had enough that I found the school that I was really interested in and I thought was going to be a great place for me. And it turned out to be really a good fit, and I'm really happy that I chose there. So Hopefully that helps you guys out. Let me know in the question in the comment section below if you have any more questions. Subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, share the video with all your friends, all that good stuff. Go watch all our other videos. We've made thousands of them. So check them out, and we'll talk to you later.